Welcome back to the Grease Goblins Rereads channel. Today's video, we're going to be talking about Tyrion 10, A Clash of Kings. This chapter really serves to be basically a repeat of, I believe it was Tyrion 8 or 7, of being a reactionary chapter to what's basically happening in the Stormlands. At this point, we just saw that Davos and Stannis were able to take Storm's End. Sir Courtney Penrose is dead. This is kind of the conclusion of that. We knew Sir Courtney was going to die based off of the end of Davos 2, but this is confirming it. So Tyrion's going to get that information, so it's a bit of a reactionary chapter to all of that going on, of Tyrion realizing Stannis is now going to be coming for King's Landing. There's a lot more going on in this, as well as in terms of a Tommen plot and trying to get basically control over the Lannister heir, and then also you have the whole Shae plot. We haven't seen a whole lot of Shae in this book, and that's one thing the show does a lot more. We get a lot more of Shae in the show versus the book. In the book, we see her every once in a while. This is one of those really, really important chapters, I especially think, for A Storm of Swords, and especially the way we're going to see the character of Shae go. But let's get into page 477, as Lancel informs Tyrion that Cersei plans to hide Prince Tommen at Rosby, disguised as a hedge knight's page with dyed hair to conceal his identity. Now, this is a very interesting plot, because we just talked about how in the last Tyrion chapter with the riot, possibly Varys could have been trying to orchestrate it to then get Tyrek Lannister to do something similar, having a Lannister heir and just keeping him for a while because he'd be important down the line. But then you also have the fact that we know later on in the story, young Griff is going to have a very similar plotline, right? Being the next Targaryen to go onto the throne. Also, you think about the idea of him dyeing his hair. This hits all a little bit too close to home if you're someone like Varys, for instance. A lot of on-the-nose foreshadowing. The Queen fears both the public, the mob, of what has just occurred in the last chapter, and also of Tyrion's motivations and what he's willing to do. Maybe Cersei did back Tyrion a bit in Tyrion 9, but she's seen that side of Tyrion. Tyrion is willing to kick or beat up Joffrey, is willing to get a little bit more brutal. And you think about the people he's surrounding himself with, sellswords, cutthroats, the mountain clans. Cersei is realizing a lot of the power is going to Tyrion. And Cersei might also be thinking, well, if Joffrey dies, Tyrion might be trying to use Tommen as a puppet. So there's a lot of that going on here, but it is interesting the way Tyrion takes such a interest in controlling Tommen. I think Tyrion believes that he's, taking the best interest for being the one able to protect Tommen, but at the same time, it's like he's counteracting, going against Cersei to gain control over Tommen. It's a weird plan. It makes a lot of reasons why when Tywin gets back to the city, of course Tywin already hates Tyrion, but stuff like this is going to be very questionable because you don't understand Tyrion's motivations if you're not Tyrion. Tyrion is surprised by this scheme, wondering whether Varys missed it or is playing his own game. Well, I think there's two things going on, which I talked about right away, is Varys feels like this is a little closer to home than he would like. He has a certain plot with something very similar. And so maybe Varys says, hey, I'm just not going to get involved in this and let Tyrion figure it out. He already has Lancel as an informer anyway. Varys also might be thinking, well, if he's the one to inform Tyrion about this, Cersei might instantly know and Varys might be on the chopping block. So Varys is playing a very delicate game, trying to balance both Tyrion and Cersei. Lancel then requests a command in the next battle, which Tyrion views as a naive death wish, especially given the odds right now. Like, they're not with the Lannister army. Lancel is going to be leading, for the most part, gold cloaks or men of untested loyalty. And so Lancel, wanting to be the leader of an army, or basically a general, it's very courageous, it's very brave, but it circles back to the point that people are not taking war seriously because they're so young. They feel like, this story revolves around them. And Tyrion, to a degree, does care about Lancel and doesn't want him to necessarily be killed. After Lancel departs, Tyrion lights a candle to the warrior for Jaime and one to the stranger for himself. That night, Tyrion sends a sealed letter to Sir Jacqueline Bywater, hinting at a move or a plan already in motion. So Tyrion is calling Bronn, and he's trying to orchestrate this in a way that doesn't look suspicious, as Tyrion is sending out Bywater with some men. He's trying to make it look like, okay, this is just routine. He's just trying to, scout the way until Stannis gets here, trying to make it look as natural as possible. He doesn't want to disturb the plan that Cersei has in motion. As we get into page 478, Tyrion plans to intercept Prince Tommen's escort, but not to stop him from leaving. Instead, he wants Sir Jacqueline Bywater to take Tommen safely to Rosby and seize the castle in the process. Tyrion is basically doing exactly what Cersei was going to do, but just make it to where it's men loyal to him. And you can understand it's also for leverage purposes. If Tyrion has control of Tommen, Cersei can't really touch Tyrion. So that is a whole another part of this that we'll see really play up as we get closer to the Battle of the Blackwater, when we see Tyrion and Cersei have their confrontation. Tyrion approves of Cersei's plan to get Tommen out of the city, but wants control over who protects him. It's a very big point here, and I think Cersei is right. You don't want to have all of your eggs in the same basket. Tywin is now in the Riverlands. He seems far away from any help. The odds are not looking great. And so if you're the Lannisters, maybe you want to spread your claimants very far from each other. For instance, Myrcella is in Dorne at this point, or at least is on her way to Dorne. You have Tommen, who's now going to be in Rosby, which is not necessarily that far from King's Landing, so it's not as far as you maybe would hope. But still, you're making it much difficult for Stannis to sniff out any type of Baratheon Lannister claimants to the throne. If you think about, for instance, the Targaryen stuff, Robert was, needing Rhaegar's children to be killed by the end of the war, so it helps his claim. He also wanted Viserys and Daenerys, but they eluded him. We see how that bites Westeros in the butt a little bit later on. Well, I guess we haven't gotten there in Winds of Winter and all that, but you see, you don't want any other claimants to be alive. You don't want a Blackfire situation. Bywater is to become Castellan of Rosby, holding Tommen under loyal guard and removing Cersei's influence. It's another move to just kind of take away Cersei's power. Bronn offers to do the job as he could really use a lordship, all of this stuff. He's seeing the benefits of this mission, but Tyrion declines, as Tyrion doesn't trust Bronn. Bronn would just as likely sell Tommen to Stannis or any of these things for, well, a reward. Tyrion instructs that Lord Giles Rosby is to be kept alive, fed, and safely removed from power. Another part of this that I want to bring up with Bronn as we're moving through this whole plot is Bronn is also the person that just suggested in the last Tyrion chapter, maybe we should just kill Joffrey to have Tommen rule and it'd be much easier. It's just a lot of that moral complexity to Bronn is that Tyrion doesn't necessarily want. Tyrion realizes that Bronn is not the best person for this kind of a mission. One of the Kingsguard will also be sent to escort Tommen, but Tyrion is confident that Bywater's men can handle it. The Kingsguard are not really a threat. If this would have been back in Aerys' day, when you had great knights and great swordsmen, this would have been a big issue. But here, again, the only one of really noteworthy swordsmanship is the Hound, so you're not really all that concerned. But Tyrion also wants to keep Tommen's innocence, as he does not want any killing to be done in front of him. He just doesn't want Tommen to go through the trauma that comes with that at such a young age. In a lot of ways, it's reflecting Tyrion's own youth and protecting Tommen from that. Tyrion jokes that Tommen is tender-hearted, then ends the scene by heading off to Chitaea's brothel, as Bronn guesses, as we get into page 479. Tyrion and Bronn leave the Red Keep via Postern Gate, riding through the dangerous streets of King's Landing under curfew. Though the curfew has reduced crime, Tyrion is hated for it, despite its effectiveness. If you're the people, this is the way you look at it. You have somebody barring you from your freedom. You can't go out and do what you want to do. And whether that's, crimes or, some of the criminals in King's Landing, but other people that have more and more innocent things, just want to go hang out with their friends at the bar, or they want to go wherever, you're now being barred from doing that. And so not only are you not being able to be fed, you're starving, you're also being barred from just going around in the streets at a certain time. It's just more of that Tyrion is restricting their rights. And again, Westeros, you don't have a lot of rights, but in terms of this, that's the way I'd be looking at it. People are growing more and more unhappy. And a lot of people would probably just want this war to be over with. They don't care who wins, whether it's Stannis or Tyrion. Just make an end to this war and all this issues that's going on. Gold Cloaks nearly challenge him, but quickly apologize when they recognize that it's Tyrion, as Bronn splits off towards the Mudgate, and Tyrion heads to Chitaea's, tired of caution and eager to see Shae. But at this, Tyrion hasn't seen Shae in a long time. The growing unease of the city, and Tyrion decides, screw it, I'm tired of being safe. He maybe has a little bit of a lapse in judgment, but Tyrion starts galloping wildly through the city to throw off any potential spies. And let's be honest, there probably were people following him, but in the middle of the dark, people are not supposed to be out during this point. He probably is going to get away pretty easily. A man greets him at where Shae is in this manse and takes his horse, as Tyrion hears singing inside and dislikes it immediately, because Tyrion's realizing somebody is visiting Shae. Well, the other part of this is Tyrion doesn't like men being around Shae in general, because this is his quote-unquote girlfriend, but you think about the more people that know of Shay's existence, the easier it will be for that information to spread. Inside, he finds Shay smiling at him, something he always appreciates, and meets the singer Simon Silvertongue, a round, balding man full of flattery. Tyrion immediately distrusts him, mocking his title and asking why he called him my Lord Hand, as Simon doesn't understand the situation. So Simon has now just been playing for this random woman that he doesn't really know her significance, but she isn't a man. She seems to have at least some sort of money, so of course Simon is looking for some sort of monetary gain. But then Tyrion walks in. At this point, you should be thinking, oh crap, I have stumbled into, more than likely, I've stumbled into the Hand of the King's paramour, or whatever you want to say. So at that point, you should be going, oh, okay, this is very dangerous. I'm not supposed to know this, all that kind of stuff. Simon doesn't really pick up on that, and Tyrion really plays that very plainly for Simon. As we get into page 480, Simon Silvertongue nervously insists he only meant respect by calling Tyrion my Lord Hand, but Tyrion warns him it was unwise to reveal such recognition, and Tyrion knows he would have figured it out. And Tyrion knows that he would have known anyway, but still, it was not very smart to do. Tyrion makes it clear that Simon knows too much about Shay, and that puts him in a very interesting position. And he even hints at silencing and killing Simon forever. And this is the point here, is you're going to make a threat to try and buy his silence more or less. Shay then teases Tyrion after the singer is gone about frightening her singer, asking him to not harm the man since his songs comfort her when Tyrion is absent. It really shows how young Shay is. Shay doesn't think about these things. Shay should be realizing, okay, I've got to keep this as quiet as possible. If this ever gets out that I'm sleeping with the Hand, I could be killed, I could be hanged, whatever you want to say. She doesn't understand that. And so that's a very big difference between the book and the show, where the show made Shay a much more adult-like character who is a bit more intelligent in certain ways and then other ways not. Like, for instance, in the show, Shay always believed, oh, there's a chance I could marry Tyrion, all this kind of stuff. In the book, it's made very clear Shay understands her position, like that she is Tyrion's whore, more or less. Here, so it's a very different dynamic, as we'll talk about that, in this chapter a good amount. Tyrion then has sex with Shay, finding solace and simplicity in her affection, despite the dangers and tensions surrounding them. Tyrion is able to have his pleasures and not have to think about the worries of the politics going on, or the war at large. It's very similar to the way we see Asha in A Dance with Dragons when she has her chapter where she's at Deepwood Mott. It's very similar, the way it's described. Like, Asha is having sex to kind of get rid of all the worry she's having. Should she go into exile? All those kind of things. It's the same idea here with Tyrion and Shay. Afterward, Tyrion reflects in the quiet garden, appreciating a fleeting sense of peace amidst the turmoil of King's Landing. It's even more, weird because King's Landing is a big city. You don't see a lot of peace and nature and things of that idea. And so for here, it's like the calm before the storm of when Varys is going to come and tell him of the bad news. This calm is interrupted when Shay appears, wearing the silvery robe Tyrion had gifted her, and announces that a begging brother, filthy, foul-smelling, and disguised, has come to see him. The begging brother is revealed to be Lord Varys in disguise, a fact Shay recognizes instantly, even before Tyrion. It's interesting because Shay is almost able to instantly spot out that this is Varys, even though everything is about him is different. His walk, his mannerisms, this fools pretty much everybody. Nobody is ever really able to, figure out if Varys is in disguise unless Varys tells them. And here's Shay picking up on that instantly. Again, it builds up the character of Shay as being a lot more, kind of street smart, I would say, than actually intelligent. But that'll get us into page 481. Tyrion acknowledges Varys' disguise is effective to most, but Shay, as a whore, sees through it easily, having learned to recognize the man beneath the clothing. Varys brings grim news. Sir Courtney Penrose is dead, and Storm's End has yielded to Stannis Baratheon. This is huge for Tyrion. Tyrion had believed they had a lot more time to try and prepare for the upcoming battle with Stannis, and even that maybe Tywin would be able to help them before that time came, but not now. This news comes with an underlying understanding that Stannis is going to be on his way soon. Tyrion is shaken by the news, realizing the strategic importance of Storm's End and how its fall accelerates the threat to King's Landing. In a rare loss of composure, Tyrion smashes his wine cup in anger and curses both Stannis and Sir Courtney Penrose, as Varys subtly questions whether Shay could hear such war talk, but Shay asserts she's not afraid. Tyrion warns her, though, that she should be afraid, given the violence of recent riots and the danger of the city falling. It's Shay not really understanding the gravity of the situation because she is such a young girl. She believes that she'll be fine. None of these bad things will happen. And one of the things we're going to see with this chapter is Tyrion is going to have a moment that's very similar to what he has in Dance Dragons with Penny, where he's just had enough of her being a child and not understanding the gravity of the situation, that her life is at stake. That's going to play into kind of this chapter here as well. He explains how little her current guards and walls would matter if chaos comes again, citing past atrocities to show how easily things could unravel. As Tyrion tells Varys to wait for him, as they will discuss on their way back to the castle, Tyrion continues with Shay. Tyrion fears what the mob or Stannis' men might do to someone associated with him, the Hand of the King, and he's completely right to think this. Another part of this is that Tyrion is reflecting on his own past. He's thinking quite a lot about Tysha in this chapter. We're going to see that the Tysha story gets revealed to Shay in this chapter in the coming page or two, and that's really playing on his mind. Tyrion doesn't want what happened to Tysha to happen again. He wants to protect her at all costs, even though in the book, specifically, Shay is not in love with Tyrion at all. Shay is using Tyrion for the monetary gain, the position. You can really tell that in the way this interaction is going to go down. As we get into page 482, Shay dreams aloud of being Tyrion's lady, wearing fine clothes and jewels, giving him sons and sitting beside him in public. Tyrion gently shuts her down, calling it a sweet dream that must be put aside, knowing it's impossible due to class, politics, and especially Cersei and Tywin. And this is what gets to the heart of the issue, right? Shay doesn't seem to be talking realistically. In the show, when Shay has these conversations with Tyrion, Shay seems to genuinely believe them. In the book, it comes more off as in another world, another lifetime, Shay could do these things, and she's just kind of dreaming. She knows this can never happen, but she hopes that it could. It's her childish dreams kind of popping up, I guess, is how I would frame it. Shay suggests Tyrion simply killing Cersei, but he explains that killing his sister would damn him in the eyes of gods and family. Tywin and Jaime still hover, and Tyrion cannot oppose them directly. The whole point that Tyrion is realizing, and he kind of has always realized, and he's really going to understand in A Storm of Swords, is Tyrion is kind of powerless when there's other more quote-unquote important Lannisters around. So, for instance, Tywin, Jaime, all that kind of stuff. He can contend with Cersei, but not when Tywin's around. And that's the issue that Tyrion runs into. And so Shay could never be Tyrion's lady. And I think Shay understands that, but she's trying to find a way. She's trying to raise her station and not have to hide. She tries to reassure him of her loyalty and love, but Tyrion knows his power is limited when it comes to his own kin. And that is the case. And another thing, Shay, think about what she's trying to do here. She's not saying, I want to be your lady, Tyrion, because I love you, because I have genuine feelings for you. She's saying it in a way that she wants to get station. She's saying all these things I could be a lady, I could wear all these nice dresses, and I could have all these jewels and be at your side. It seems more of Shay dreaming about this life that she's not been able to attain. It's not much about her and Tyrion together as a couple. Tyrion then proposes a plan to smuggle Shay into the Red Keep disguised as a scullion in the kitchens using Varys' help. Shay is clearly disappointed at the idea of posing as a lowly pot girl and rough spun instead of living openly as his lady. Think about what's going on here. So Shay very clearly seems to be much more worried about her station, the things that she likes, her jewels, her dresses, all that stuff. She's going to lose all of those things. It's all the things that Shay has wanted. She's, trying, she's still a girl for one, but she's also been working towards this. The reason she's with Tyrion, it's not because she loves Tyrion, it's because she gets a lot of things from him. It's very similar to Bronn, for instance. And her having to be, scullion, it's a very low looked upon job. And it's going to change Shay in a lot of reasons. Shay is going to think of a lot of things that might turn Tyrion away from her. Remember, Shay has made a living based off of her beauty, her looks. And if she's now a kitchen scullion, that's going to go away, right? Working in the kitchens is going to make her have to work hard. She's going to have issues in terms of, maybe her skin gets burned or whatever. And she's going to talk about that in this chapter. Tyrion insists it's for her protection, pointing out she can't survive in King's Landing as his visible mistress. And that is the case. And Tyrion knows, like, all the things that she's going to lose in this situation can be brought back. Tyrion is rich. Her life cannot be. She playfully mocks the idea of becoming a kitchen wench, joking seductively about role playing while still trying to seduce him physically, suggesting she knows how to use her power over him. This is that classic woman using her physical attractiveness, I guess, to manipulate the man. For instance, we saw this with Daenerys with Drogo in book 1, her trying to get Drogo to go to Westeros. We saw this exactly happen in book 1. And I'm not saying this is like as a bad thing. You think about women in this society, they don't have many ways of having their own choices, of their own power, all those kind of things. And so a lot of times sex is what is used to do those things. And I think that it's an interesting moment here because it shows you all you really need to know, that Shay is playing the role. Everything I've kind of laid out through my Game of Thrones and Clash of Kings reread really leads to this idea that Shay knows how to manipulate Tyrion to a degree. So as we get into page 483, Shay continues to flirt with Tyrion, but Tyrion is reminded of Dancy and pulls her hand away. This is the girl that was in Chitaea's brothel that was trying to sleep with Tyrion, more or less, for a bet. As Tyrion warns Shay that this isn't the time for bed sport, as her life may be in danger, Shay is not taking this seriously. She doesn't believe she's at any harm because Tyrion is in control, all that kind of stuff. Shay loses her grin and asks if he could simply give her more guards. But Tyrion sighs, reminding himself of how young she is, takes her hand, and reassures her she's the most precious thing to him in King's Landing. And that's the whole point, right? Is that Shay is not taking the threat seriously. Tyrion's trying to be patient with her, trying to tell her and understand what possibly could happen to her, but she just isn't getting it. He says that the Red Keep isn't entirely safe, but safer than where they are, and he wants her there. He wants her to be alive. She responds flatly in the kitchen, scouring pots. Tyrion says it's only for a short while. Shay says her father made her his kitchen wench, which led her to run off. As Tyrion reminds her, she also said her father made her his whore. Shay confirms both, but says she hated both tasks and asks why she can't stay in Tyrion's tower since other lords keep bedwarmers. Now, this is a great point. Shay understands that all these other lords, they're able to sleep with whoever they want, they're able to have their own side women or whatever, but Tyrion isn't. And so Shay is looking at this going, why can't I just be at this position? Why can't I live lavishly? And even her origin and her background story that she's telling here tells a lot. It reveals a lot about Shay. Shay had always dreamed of a grander life than being a whore or being just some servant, a kitchen wench, more or less, which is totally understandable. And the way she's trying to acquire that is really through Tyrion. It's the same idea of Bronn trying to get higher up in terms of the social rank. It's the same idea. And it's what's so tragic about Tyrion's character is he wants so badly to be loved that he's willing to overlook these moments like we see in this chapter. Tyrion says, though, he was forbidden to bring her to court, and Shay mocks Tywin's authority and questions what he could do to stop Tyrion. And this is going to sting quite a lot for Tyrion, because Tyrion knows he can't stand up to Tywin. He knows he can't do anything, really, because he doesn't have any of the power. But this is going to stoke the memory of Tysha, and how Tyrion has felt powerless before this. Tyrion then slaps her lightly and tells her never to mock him. And this gets to the heart of the issue, right? Tyrion, for kind of a split second, has this lapse in judgment, hitting a woman, and especially a young girl in Shay. It's not a good thing. Again, it builds onto Tyrion is not a hero, right? That's what this story is trying to tell you. It's not the story the show is trying to tell you. And you can understand why Tyrion is so angered by this. You can understand everything because it's all kind of falling apart in his eyes. He can't defend Shay, and this is all coming to the front. He can't protect her. It reminds him of probably the worst moment of his life with Tysha. He tells her then about his past. At 13, he believed he had married a crofter's daughter he loved. She was actually a whore hired by Jaime to give him his first sexual experience. Tywin then forced Tyrion to watch the guards sexually assault her, and then commanded Tyrion to have her one last time. Tywin annulled the marriage, and the Septons said it had never happened. Tyrion squeezes Shay's hand and asks her to stop talking about staying in the Tower of the Hand. This is a very dark story to be telling Shay. Think about Shay and Tysha based on what Tyrion believes about Tysha, that Tysha was a whore. This is very dark because Shay is now realizing that Tyrion can't protect her. The person with all the power is Tywin. And so when we get later on in the story and you see Shae do some certain actions, this is a story that's going to stay in the back of her mind. Tyrion cannot protect her against people like Tywin. And if she wants to really, go up in social class, Tywin might be the better option than Tyrion. And that's a tough thing to think about here because Shae then all of a sudden kind of goes cold to Tyrion. And I mean that not as like, oh, it's out of nowhere. You can understand it. But it seems like the gears are kind of turning for Shae as she's realizing what Tyrion's really telling her. He promises she'll only be in the kitchens for a short time. We'll have fine things once Stannis is defeated. As we get into page 484, Shae asks if Tyrion will still want her when her hands are rough from cleaning ovens and washing dishes. Tyrion says he will love them more as they'll remind him of her bravery. Shae lowers her eyes and says, I'm yours to command, my lord. The most acceptance she can give that night. And this should tell you all you need to know, because Shae is worried about her physical appearance going down and Tyrion just disregarding her dream being over. And she's not all that happy with the future that is to come. And you can really even see it here as Tyrion should realize, if this was your actual girlfriend, somebody that actually loved you and cared about you, Shae's response would not be, I'm yours to command, my lord. It tells you the relationship dynamics here. That again, Tyrion is paying for Shae to basically be his girlfriend. Tyrion kisses her cheek where he struck her and says he will send for her. Tyrion meets Varys at the stables, and Varys waits with a worn-out horse, again playing up to his disguise. Tyrion mounts up and they ride out in silence. Tyrion internally questions why he told Shae about Tysha, feeling fear and shame. Tyrion felt backed into a corner. Shae wasn't believing him, and so he kind of went to a place of anger and, well, trying to control her to some degree. He wonders if Shae's reaction was due to the kitchen assignment or his confession, and doubts her love. You see this right here. Tyrion should be doubting it a ton. Like, this should be the moment, right, where Tyrion goes, wait, why am I saying this is love in my head? There's all these red flags. You're basically paying for her to like you. It's painfully obvious as a reader because, well, we're not directly involved in love and what love does to people. But man, it's a tough one. It's definitely tough to read in the book when you know Tyrion should be understanding this. He's so intelligent, but emotionally right now, he struggles because of his past and things of that nature that, dictate his actions. His injured elbow throbs with each step of the horse, and he considers seeking a maester, but mistrusts them after Pycelle's betrayal. There's some interesting points that get brought up in A Clash of Kings that try to basically start the conversation of the Maester conspiracy. It doesn't really start until A Feast for Crows, but he mentions specifically he doesn't trust them because who knows what the Maesters could be mixing into these potions and what their motivations are. It's really interesting when you also think about, the beginning of A Clash of Kings with Crescent and he doing his own activities trying to kill Mel and all that comes with that. It is interesting that George maybe was having the seeds for the idea of a Maester conspiracy idea this early on in the series. Tyrion then tells Varys that he needs to bring Shae into the castle without Cersei knowing and explains the kitchen cover story. Varys agrees that yes, he does need to get Shae into the castle, but at the same time, the kitchens are maybe not the best place as they're full of gossip and suspicion. He also explains that Shae will have to lie constantly about her background. Think about going into a workplace. So you're going into your first new job. And inherently, that's going to come with questions. People are going to want to know who you are, what do you like to do, where do you come from, all those type of questions that if you don't know the answers to, and you're not a good liar like Shae, that could lead you into some really big issues. It's going to bring up a lot of suspicion. Varys then also warns that as a pretty kitchen wench, she will draw unwanted attention, be subject to groping and fondling, and may be pursued romantically or sexually by others. It's telling Tyrion that can you hold together your jealousy for other people being around Shae? And Shae, maybe she might even fall out of, liking you because of all the attention she's getting from others. Those are all things that Tyrion has to worry about. As we get into page 485, Tyrion sets all of that aside, rather hoping that Shae can stay alive than being fondled. Varys then suggests an alternative. He suggests that Lawless, Lady Tanda's daughter, who may need a new maidservant if Varys informs on the current maidservant who has been stealing jewels, if they could put Shae into that position, which the show did it with Sansa, Shae would be able to keep certain dresses, jewels, and she'd be kind of out of the way and out of suspicion. Tyrion sees the benefit a lady's maid would dress better, wear jewelry, and Cersei avoids Lady Tanda and Lawless. Varys notes that Lawless is timid and afraid to leave her chambers after assault by the mob, which you can't blame her. I mean, Lawless gets brutally sexually assaulted, over and over and over again. You can understand how that has changed her. And that kind of leads Shay then to be putting into her service. Shay would be hidden but still nearby for Tyrion. Tyrion warns that Cersei would become suspicious if Lawless's maid visited the Tower of the Hand. How is Tyrion supposed to sleep with her? How is she supposed to spend time with her? But Varys says he may be able to sneak Shay into Tyrion's bedchamber using a secret door. Now, this is a huge reveal. Tyrion is all for there being secret passages that he can use for his own benefit, but the idea that at any moment Varys could sneak into Tyrion's bedchambers is disquieting. Could you think about that if you're sleeping, you go to sleep tonight, whatever, and you realize, oh, there's a secret passage into your house. Somebody could have been coming into your house, into your exact, room where you sleep at any point. Tyrion very annoyed by this. Tyrion then asks where the door is. Varys avoids this, answering, saying he must keep some secrets. Tyrion tells him to think of them as our little secrets and questions Varys' loyalty. Because at this point, you gotta be thinking, okay, Varys did not tell you about the Tommen plot. He's also not willing to tell you about the secret door into Tyrion's own chambers. It's a lot to handle if you're Tyrion. Varys affirms his support as Tyrion responds with a bitter laugh, saying he trusts Varys like his own blood. Tyrion then asks how Sir Courtney Penrose died, and Varys says it's claimed he threw himself from a tower, which we know to not be true, of course, because of the Shadow Baby stuff, but Tyrion and Varys do not know that whatsoever. Tyrion refuses to believe it and suggests alternate explanations, things that are more realistic that could have happened. Maybe somebody hiding in the room, descending on a rope, or the guards lying and committing the murder himself. Either way, Tyrion blames it on, well, the bad side of people, and them turning on Sir Courtney Penrose, or an assassin somehow sneaking in. There has to be a tangible answer outside of magic or some random suicide that didn't seem to be likely to happen. As we get into page 486, Varys sarcastically agrees with Tyrion, but he doesn't seem to actually be agreeing with Tyrion. Tyrion presses Varys for how it was really done, but after a pause, Varys asks if Tyrion believes in the old powers, magic, blood spells, curses, shapeshifting, and Tyrion doesn't. He scoffs at the idea that Courtney was killed by magic. And this is the heart of it. Because magic is so not believed in the world, when Stannis is, doing these things, like he's having magic be on his side, people are dying mysteriously, it adds to the fear that people will have against Stannis that they already feel. Stannis is somebody that is, you don't love him, you fear him. And when you have that aspect of Melisandre there, it adds to it. Varys points out Sir Courtney challenged Stannis to single combat that morning, not the act of a despairing man. Again, he's putting out the idea that this was not a suicide. It had to have been a murder. He also reinforces that Renly's mysterious and timely murder just before the battle. Varys is putting all the pieces together. Renly dies at a very opportune moment in the peak of Renly's health, all that kind of stuff. Now Sir Courtney Penrose dies, very opportune, protected by Storm's End. All of a sudden he dies. It all is very suspicious. Varys brings up Tyrion's past question about how he was cut, and Varys unveils his story. As an orphan apprenticed to a traveling folly, he was sold to a man in Myr, but the man only wanted his genitals for a ritual. The man gave him a paralyzing potion that left him conscious during the castration. Could you think about this? It paralyzes him from moving, but it doesn't dull any of his senses. He was still feeling the pain. He was smelling everything going on, hearing everything that was going on. That is crazy to think about, how brutal this little ceremony was. While cutting him, the man chanted and burned his genitals in a brazier. The flames turned blue, and a voice answered from within, though Varys couldn't understand the words. We still don't know what these words truly meant. There's been theories on it. I've made videos on this. I think this probably was a voice hinting at Varys' death or something along those lines, maybe even by Daenerys. But, well, we just don't know. Afterward, the man abandoned him, telling Varys he should die. Varys survived, though, by begging, stealing, and selling parts of his body, later becoming a skilled thief. It really is the origin story for Varys, something that we haven't really discovered much at all, and this is a great moment. Kind of similar to, in my opinion, like getting the backstory for Aemon. Whenever we get moments like that with Jon or Sam's plotline, it's always a nice moment. Same here with Varys. Varys learned that information was more valuable than gold, and he still dreams the voice from the flames, not the pain or the man, just the voice. Varys confesses his hatred for magic and those who practice it. He declares if Stannis uses magic, he wants him dead. It all starts to make sense now. Why is Varys so willing to kind of almost befriend Tyrion, help him out against Stannis specifically? And this is why. Because of the magic that Varys perceives Stannis to be doing. As we get into page 487, Varys finishes his story as they ride in silence for a while. Tyrion tries to offer sympathy, but Varys can tell Tyrion doesn't believe him, as it is magic, and it is hard to believe as Varys is drugged and all of this stuff, and that's some of the things Varys told himself for a very long time, but can't get it out of his head of what was said with that voice. Tyrion says he believes in steel, gold, wits, and that dragons once existed because he has seen their skulls. It's a lot about, seeing, not believing. He has to see it. He can't just believe it. He has to see that idea. It's what I think a lot of people do, and I find myself as well like this as well at times, and so I don't blame Tyrion at all for not believing that this is all magic. Varys hopes that the worst thing Tyrion ever sees is these dragon skulls. Tyrion speculates Stannis might have hired a skilled assassin from the Free Cities, something maybe like a faceless man. Varys agrees it would have taken a very skilled one. They would have had to somehow have gotten into Storm's End, snuck into, for instance, also Renly's camp, surrounded by his Kingsguard and all of his knights. It seems it would have taken a miracle. Tyrion recalls once dreaming of being rich enough to hire a faceless man to kill Cersei. Interesting little note, especially if Cersei is going to die by Arya. That's an interesting dream to have. And I know people have speculated that the idea that Tyrion is also a Targaryen, if he's having maybe one of these dreams, he maybe saw Arya killing Cersei. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought it was a little interesting of a nod. Varys then says, regardless of how Sir Courtney died, he is dead and Storm's End has fallen. Stannis is free to march. Tyrion tries to find some other solution, asking if the Dornish might attack the marches, but Varys says no. Tyrion says the threat may still keep the Marcher Lords near home, but they will not really get any true help from the Martells. Tyrion inquires about Tywin's status, and Varys says no word has come and warns Tywin could be trapped if he delays. We know at this point Tywin is trying to make his way to the west. He's unaware of what's happened in the south. This is detrimental. It means there is no help for Tyrion and King's Landing. They are on their own. Varys mentions the oak hearts and Rowan banners have been seen north of the Mander, and Tyrion asks about Littlefinger, and Varys says he may never have reached Bitterbridge or may have died. And it's just kind of building up what's to come, right? The Reach is being spotted further north than usual. There's something a little bit, interesting going on there. Could the Lannister-Tyrell alliance be forming? Varys adds that Lord Tarly seized Renly's supplies and killed many Florents, and also Lord Castle has locked himself into his castle. Tyrion laughs and points out the irony. Storm's End has fallen, Stannis is coming with dark forces, and the people have no champion. Tyrion is being forced and thrust into be the savior, the champion of King's Landing. The people everyone hates. The dwarf, the hated advisor, the twisted little monkey demon. Tyrion laughs again, saying he's all that stands between the people and chaos. And it's completely true. All of this is going to come out when we get to Tyrion's trial later on. Tyrion is the person that stepped up. Even when we get into the battle, for instance, the Hound is going to desert their cause. Joffrey's going to hide. Tyrion must step up and lead the Lannisters to victory at King's Landing. So, thank you guys all for watching. A really good, underrated chapter, I think. I don't think it's one of Tyrion's best, but I think it does a great job of building up to the Battle of the Blackwater, which will be coming in, a couple more chapters. We're getting closer to the end of the book. It's really good that we get I think the Shae-Tyrion dynamic needs to be more expanded upon, and this chapter does that, as we hadn't seen them really in a long time. Having a deep conversation like this, the Tysha story, how that plagues Tyrion as a character. Varys' origin story is fantastic as well. So there's a lot of good stuff in this chapter. So thank you guys all for watching. I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys.